On today at around 7:20 p.m., IMPD Southwest District officers were dispatched to the 4900 block of Knights Way after a 911 caller called 911 saying that they heard a female yelling for help from inside one of the semi-trucks parked at that location. Officers in full uniform arrived, spoke with that complainant. The semi-truck was pointed out to them, and they approached that truck, knocked on the door, and observed a male come out from behind the curtain which separates the driving compartment with the sleeping compartment of the semi-cab. I'm not sure what that communication was, or if there was much communication at all between the officers and that male at that time. The male sat in the driver's seat at one point of the cab, briefly looking at the officer, and then retreated back into the back of the cab. That's when the officers heard themselves, a female, scream for help from in the back of that truck. The officers did what they were supposed to do. They notified their supervisor, who was on scene almost immediately. After the supervisor was there, who began giving directions to the officers to set up positions around the truck, they made announcements for anybody in the truck to come out using the PA system of one of the patrol cars. The decision was made by the lieutenant on scene to break the window out of the driver's side of the semi-truck so that they could see better into the cab and hear, because there were curtains blocking both the window of that particular window and the compartment between the driving compartment and the sleeping compartment. The lieutenant at one point opened the door and began communicating with the male inside the car or the truck. The lieutenant asked the individual to identify himself. The lieutenant identified himself by first name. He was attempting to build a rapport with this individual. The individual kept saying he had a knife to the woman's throat. All the while, the woman could be heard screaming that she was bleeding and needed help. This went on for a few minutes. The lieutenant, in my opinion, bravely inched into the car on multiple occasions to move the curtain back so that he could see and continue to try to communicate with the individual inside the cab. Like I said before, the woman continued to ask for help and tell the officers that she was bleeding and losing consciousness at one point. Eventually, the officer took a position inside of the semi-truck, gave the individual orders once again. You can briefly see on the body cam the individual on top of the woman in the back of the car. A shot was fired by the officer. The suspect was deceased inside the cab of the truck. The officers immediately after the shot was fired, other officers outside came into the semi and rescued the woman from inside the semi-truck. They gave her medical attention, and then she was transported to, medics also gave her attention, then transported to the homicide office for a statement. This is all preliminary information. The investigation is still ongoing as we speak. The Marion County Crime Lab is here processing the scene. The Marion County Prosecutor's Office had a representative here earlier. This investigation is being led by the Critical Incident Response Team. A parallel administrative investigation will be conducted by the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department Internal Affairs Unit. After those investigations are done, the executive staff of the police department will be briefed. After the criminal investigation is complete, the Civilian Majority Use of Force Review Board will review both the internal affairs investigation and the criminal investigation and make recommendations to the chief of police on whether or not policy, procedures, and training were followed in this particular incident.
So just so we're clear, it was one officer fired one shot into the suspect.
Yes.
And that officer, is that like her procedure on leave right now? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I left that part out. The officer's on administrative leave. There are other assisting officers that will be given opportunity to take a few days off as well. Anytime these incidents occur, they're traumatic for all the officers involved, as well as the community at large.
So from what we know right now, the only weapon displayed was a knife, no handgun or anything like that.
Right now we have a blade of some sort. That the search of the inside of the compartment has not been completed. We know what the victims told us was a weapon. We know what her injuries are consistent with some sort of blade injuries, and so once the investigation and they have is further along and they have completed the search of the interior, that would be better prepared to talk about what the exact weapon was.
And what was the relationship between the two?
That's still unknown at this point. It'll be she will be interviewed by detectives, and we'll gain more insight about what led to this to begin with, and what their relationship is.
Was she hospitalized at this time?
She is not.
Chief, can you speak to the assistance that was provided to the female here?
I don't know the exact extent, but they pulled her out, wrapped her wounds. Victim assistance came to the scene to try to help her. She seemed very traumatized, from what I understand, about what happened. So we'll provide her assistance not only tonight but going forward. Chief Adams and his team in the Criminal Investigations Division and the Victim Assistance Unit will make sure that she gets proper treatment.
So you said he complied at the beginning and sat in the driver's seat.
No, he didn't. I didn't say he complied. I said that the officers were trying to communicate with him. There wasn't much communication. He sat in the seat, stared at the officers, and then disappeared into the back.
Do we believe that I saw Animal Control was here and they removed what was believed to be a service dog from that cab. Did he have any type of medical incident? Was there any?
We have, at this point, we have not identified who the name of the individual, and I don't. It's the first I'm hearing about a service dog. I know there was a dog in there, but I don't know that for a fact that it's a service dog.
Did a witness called 911 and heard some screaming from inside the cabin? Is that how this whole thing started?
Yes, that's correct. A 911 caller called 911 saying they heard a woman yelling for help from inside of that cab. Officers came here, heard that plea for help themselves, and started the investigation. Throughout the encounter the discussion, de-escalation between the lieutenant and the suspect, the woman could be heard multiple times screaming for help, saying she's bleeding out, she's losing consciousness of some sort.
How long were you trying to work with this person to make sure, to de-escalate the situation before you had to shoot them?
Well, each one of these situations are dependent on the circumstances that are known to the officer at the time.
How much time elapsed tonight?
You mean tonight?
Yeah.
There were several minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the status of the outside consulting group that you folks have mentioned before, that might be sort of looking into some of these recent incidents that we've been seeing in the last couple months?
That's an ongoing process. Those are discussions that we'll have. The chief will make the final decision. We haven't gotten all the proposals that we've asked for, so that's an ongoing process, and not something that's going to happen quickly.
And here we are sitting almost 2 weeks to the day where we just had our last officer-involved shooting. How frustrating is that for your department? And what's that like?
Well, I mean, obviously, anytime there's a loss of life in our community, which has happened way too many times over the last several years, it's frustrating for all of us. We never want to put our officers in positions where they have to use deadly force, and we certainly don't want them to ever. And they certainly don't leave their houses hoping that happens, regardless of the circumstances. Whether they're justified or not justified, I'm not talking about any particular incident right now. What happened is going to be with that officer for the rest of their lives. There's nothing you can do about it. I think sometimes people believe that we're robots, that we don't have feelings, or that we don't care that much. They very much care. The reason why they put on this uniform every day is because they care, and we care very much about what the community thinks about what is happening right now. But I would also say we're sitting at 165 criminal homicides this year. That's community member on community member violence. We have a problem in our community, and the police department alone is not going to solve those particular issues. It's going to take all of us working together and figuring out ways that we can try to solve our issues without violence. Tonight, this officer saved a woman's life.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.